Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the JustDoorToolZ 4041 or 4040 XP series. What they call a permanent template is what it is. This is the 4041 4040 XP PA permanent template. So, as you know, there are three primary ways to install a door closer: top jamb, regular arm, parallel arm. Each of those would require a different template. This is a PA mount version of that, a parallel arm, not taking into account drop plates, corner brackets, any creative way that you've seen closers installed where the arm is heavily preloaded. This is just parallel arm mount, which means the door closer body is mounted on the door, on the push side, and the arm is connected to the forearm is connected to the parallel arm bracket, which is then applied to the soffit of the stop. Okay, there'll be 5 holes for the 4041, which are here. And if you study this, you might say to yourself, well, something don't seem right. Those holes are odd, but we're going to get to that. So this first part of the video is going to talk about this metal piece of equipment itself, okay, and how to use it. And then we're going to look at the installation instructions to talk about how to use it. First of all, there's a big L and there's a big R, okay? So whatever hand of the door that you're dealing with, a left hand or a right hand, is the side of the template that will be facing you. If you have a right hand reverse door, that's all good. You're just going to use the left hand side. Left hand would be a right hand reverse door would call for in this case you would call it right hand reverse, but it's a left hand templating is what it is. And how this works is very simply, and it's very helpful to read the paperwork, and we're going to do that. Over here it says hinge 180 degree. This is the top. That's pretty easy to figure out. And what you're going to do with this is you're going to hook this on the top of your door. You're going to flush this to the edge of the door. And don't do anything just yet. But you'll flush this to the edge of the door, and then you'll mark your 4 holes for you mark your 4 holes for your 4041. When I say 4041, I mean 4040 XP as well. So you're going to mark your holes here and here. That's based on you wanting to achieve the maximum degree of opening, which on this closer would be 180 degree. It's not unheard of to have that, obviously. I relatively recently did a job where the whole important part was getting the door out to 180 degrees, and a lot of conversation about the degree of opening. And while we might, if we sell hardware, we might take it for granted that a parallel arm mount can go to 180 degree. It's not necessarily clear cut to other people. This was a daycare facility, and they needed to get the door open to 90 but back to 180. And then we had a manual holder exterior door, playground, toddlers coming in and out. They wanted that door hooked back and open, parallel to the wall. So this template is, of course, going to give you that ability, but it's more likely that you're going to do a 120 degree mount. And what they're showing us here are these 2 dots, 120 and 90. Okay. Should you want to install this with 120 degree, what you will do is put a little mark through that hole on the face of the door. You are then going to slide the template. Here's the mark, right here. You are then going to slide the template over so that the mark is the edge of the door. Okay, so what have I done? I have moved my template away from the vertical axis of pivoting. If you've installed door closers, you have noticed the relationship between the center line of the hinge, or the vertical axis of pivoting, or the pivot, to the first reference hole, which is generally one hole on the closer body. It's some hole, and then you'll get center to center mount dimensions over. You may have noticed that when your vertical axis of pivoting to the first hole is smaller, your door opens up further. And that when that dimension is increased, the door doesn't open as far. So the effect of taking this, flushing this to the edge of the door, actually yeah, flushing this to the edge of the door, and then sliding it away. If the ridge of my hand represents the vertical axis of pivoting, and I move the template away, I'm increasing that distance. And that's why you're going to have 120 degree, and if you wanted it to be at 90 degree, you would move it even further away. Okay? And that's how this template works in terms of determining that. So what the template is good for right here, right now, the way you're looking at it, is for applying and marking the holes for the door closer body on the push face of the door. Okay? That's what this is good for right here and right now. About the template itself, this is made of steel. Okay? This might be powder coated. The texture appears to be powder coated, which is good because powder coating is an extremely durable method of painting. I don't know that's how they did it, but it may be powder coated. This template weighs 1.16 pounds. It is, so it's not insignificant in its weight, and it certainly gives you the impression that it's durable. Okay, wouldn't have any hesitation about using it. The thickness of the steel, 0.04, so it's 40 thousandths of an inch thick. Dimensional properties, let's go over that now. About 18 inch. Overall height is going to be about 6 1/8. Okay. So we've talked about how to just use this. Now let's skip over to the installation instructions where we're going to be able to talk about how to prep the arm very clearly, and then we're going to talk about it in person is what we'll do. Okay, so now looking at the included paperwork, when it comes to the installation, this first page is really a reference to a closer arm in a parallel arm fashion type mount. They're obviously showing us the underside of the header here, okay, where you're going to mount a parallel arm bracket. So, you know, having looked at this manufacturer's installation instructions in the past and having also, you know, just digested the information and, you know, cross-referenced it against my understanding of how door closers are installed, the easiest way to proceed with these folks is to simply read it. For maximum degree shown on template, flush the template with the stop. And again, this is for a parallel arm mount. If it's a regular arm mount, it doesn't apply. But going over the installation instructions, flush the template with stop on frame at hinge side. Use pencil to mark the holes for the closer arm. Okay. And that will give you the maximum degree. And what they want you to do next is, if you want to change the degree from the maximum to whatever else is possible for the door closer, this one says 90, well, over here for the arm, 90 and 120. What you would do in this case is you would, let's say you wanted to do 120. They're showing 90. Let's say you wanted to do 120. Take a pencil and mark through the hole. Then what you do is you literally take the template and slide it over to flush the edge of the template to the mark that you've made so it looks like this. Just like this. Now, why do we know that's correct? Because the further away you install the door closer from the vertical axis of pivoting, the degree of opening is reduced. Okay, so it does make perfect sense that our unit is going to be at its maximum opening when it is closest to the vertical axis of pivoting. Now, what this company has done is already made the mathematical calculations for the projection of the stop. Now, they're clearly assuming that this is a 5/8 projection stop, and that the arrangement of the hinges will not be raised barrel or swing clear, or Tectus or sauce, etc. So some generalities have been concluded, but let's face it, that's 99% of your installations, okay? And that's what this template's going to hit. Now, when we get to page 2, that's where it really comes into play for us to understand the door closer body, because in our application, and while this is the same template for a parallel arm mount, it's the same concept. You'll have an R on one side and an L on the other. Okay, you're going to apply it with that face out depending on your hand of opening. These installation instructions are definitely showing us a parallel arm mount sort of application. This could be a 4041 that's shown here. I don't know exactly the closer model. The instructions are generic. The application, though, is universal. Same concept. Flush it to the edge of the door if you want the maximum degree of opening, and mark, and then mark your holes. These are obviously for the body. It is certainly, and that's your 5th hole, by the way, on a parallel arm bracket. It is certainly going to make a lot of sense for you to have the paper template so that you can understand what you're doing. And again, if you want to change, let's say you wanted to go to 120, mark your pencil hole here, and then slide your template over for the edge of the template to be on that pencil mark. So what they're showing here is the maximum degree of opening, and down here is if you want to change the degree of opening. It's mark the hole, slide it over. It's that simple. On the 3rd page that they have here, the holes drilled are for the degree of opening shown on the edge of the permanent template. Okay, so that's where these holes are. If you flush that to the edge of your door or to the stop, that's what you're getting. To use this permanent template for 90, mark the hole, slide it over, just as it's shown here. They're showing 90 here. Slide it over, and now it's going to be at 90. Permanent templates can also be designed to lay out multiple degrees, as they're showing. Okay, so really all they've done is gone over that concept several and many times. What's important is that you use a sorry. That you use a center punch or pencil to mark the holes. There are no bushings on this template. There's no protection. You will not put a drill bit on it at all, or you're going to ruin the template. So a center punch is nice. A pencil is nice as well. If this is your first time, use a pencil. After you know you're ready to rock and roll, use a center punch, because that will solve 2 problems. It will mark your hole, and it will allow you a place to have your drill bit start. Now, you will not, of course, use a center punch when you're marking your degree. That has to be a pencil. Okay, so be mindful of that. You don't want a center punched hole just for marking your degree of opening. Now, below this video, there is an older version of the installation instructions, which are simply here, and I don't think anything's changed. These are from about 2016, and the newer document is from 2019. So now let's take a review of the actual metal template itself. So now that we've gone over what the installation instructions look like that basically come with the package, specifically for this unit, what you'll be doing in order to locate the parallel arm bracket, and it would be neat if it was kind of detailed here in the outline of a parallel arm bracket, I suppose. You know, it'll come down like this, down like this, down like this, up and over. Okay. Actually, I have one here. So I happen to have this is a real PA bracket from an LCN closer. I think it's been painted though. Okay. And what you're going to see here is, obviously, it would need to kind of look like this. Okay, see how your holes line up. So when you're looking at the template, you're saying, well, gosh, that doesn't make any sense at all, as we discovered earlier, looking at the installation instructions. So you are literally going to, again, working on the same hand of the unit, you're going to flip this up. Now you're going to do like this, up at the header, and then mark your holes. So if I'm doing a left hand, my bracket is certainly going to look like this. And my door is going to swing out like this. Okay? That's just simply how that's going to work. So the door, the template will go on the door to mark your holes, but then you flip it up like this to do your parallel arm bracket. Okay? Following the absolute same logic for your degree. But you'll notice the holes for the arm, 180, you're going to flush that to the soffit of the stop. They're obviously counting on your projection being 5/8, the vertical axis of pivoting being where the hinge is expected to be. You're not doing a swing clear hinge. You're not doing a raised barrel hinge. Not that that would really matter very much. So they're counting on a typical, 5/8 projection on a hollow metal frame scenario. They may have a template for swing clear hinges. I don't know. So you're going to follow the same logic. You're not going to use these holes that are marked closer. You'll use these holes that are marked arm all the way over if you want 180. Otherwise, mark it, whatever you need, and slide it. You'll flush this to the face of the stop. Let's jump onto the screen here and take a look. See if we can illustrate a little bit better what that's going to, how the template's going to sit. Now, how that's going to look is going to be, you'll have your header here, okay, and let's say that your door is here, you're swinging out. You're going to literally take that template and ride it right across here. You're going to mark your holes right through there. That's the only place this can go. I have spoken to the factory and if you get to a point where something doesn't seem to make sense when you look at the template, I'll tell you what I've done is you're obviously going to have, you will have the closer. What you could very certainly do is simply pull up the original, pull out the template. You've got 180 degree template PA mounting. It's right here. And you can instantly just check your dimensions before you proceed. Because, the template may be foreign for a moment. You might need a little bit of time to review it. Okay? But it's very simple in the sense that all you're really doing is then just taking your template and applying it to your door. Well, you're applying it to your door, hanging it down, and then marking your holes, right? Okay. And what you do is you'll just take that same template and just flip it up. So now it's upside down, and now you're looking up into the opening like I had drawn earlier. So your template is now here, and you're making your holes through here for your door pocket here. Okay. That would be the way to, I suppose, initially be comfortable with it, to reinforce the point. Maximum degree of opening, you're at 6.5 inch, and you slide it over. You can see how your relationship increases. I suppose you might need to, if you wanted to accomplish 140 degree, I suppose you might need to come up with a relationship between 6.5 and 8 and 180 and 120 and determine how much more to move it over. But door closers really have a wider range, so to speak. You won't get precision, dead stopping or degree of opening out of it using that formula. 180 degrees, 120, 90. And you'll see that the manufacturer has taken from the template the options that are available. And if you recall, the options on our template are only 90, 120, and 180. Okay. Now let's The one thing I might mention is when you're drilling that fifth hole, you know how you've got that spacer that's referred to here. The template has the fifth hole mark. You may not be able to actually mark that through the template because you might not be able to insert something small enough through the hole to mark it on the frame. You might need to lay that out with your parallel arm bracket. All right, let's take a look at the physical template itself and talk about, I think, about the etiquette of how to handle working with this template. Okay, now the etiquette, so to speak, of working with the template is you're not going to drill through this. The instructions are very clear about that. Don't do that. There are no bushings here. This is for only a pencil being inserted through, and after you're confident that you're happy with where everything's going to be laid out, maybe graduate to a center punch, but just a pencil. A pencil can be erased. A pencil can be a pencil is not permanent, is what I'm driving at. So you'll locate that, you'll mark with your pencil. You want to use your center punch, no doubt about that. But those holes are quite small, so be mindful of, don't hold that in there and try to drill through it. Mark it only. Now what's nice about this template is, and you know, there may be two schools of thought on permanent templates. Locksmithing tools, door installation tools, these are expensive investment caliber pieces of equipment. What's nice about this template, and the manufacturer tells you, is do it while the doors are in the flat. Do it while before the frames are installed, if you can. Get those holes drilled, marked, drilled, tapped, rather than doing it overhead. Get the welded frame on your bench, clamp it down, okay? Then do all your marking, your drilling, your tapping. It's really great. If you're supplying and installing, and a lot of distributors do, you've got the frames in your shop, so you might as well just make it happen. You can decentralize the work. One person's got the template, drilling holes. Then you got a couple of people grabbing, as you build that pile, they're taking from the pile and hanging the doors. So it's really nice. What's also nice about it is if you've ever worked on a door and you're in the opening, what's the biggest chronic problem about that? People coming through the opening, and all you want to do is install this lock. This template will allow you to do the work outside of the opening completely if you can, at least marginally as well. You want to swing the doors and then mark and install? Great, but you can at least do the marking and installing you know, with this template because you can. Two schools of thought: making your own templates, buying pre-manufactured material. I have sold, I think, every installation aid to people that, you know, there are door carts, lock jigs, lock installation tools, permanent templates from JustDoorToolZ. And there are people who will look at you and say, you know, I've had conversations about lock installation kits, and I tell them I don't use one. They look at you, well, how do you install a lock? Well, I measure it, I mark it, so, but these people who use templates, they are not interested in installing it without, because not that they can't mark, not that they can't read a tape measure and do it accurately, of course they can. They make a living doing that. But to them, it's elegance to use a tool that's meant to do the job, okay? And I certainly get that, absolutely. When it comes to making your own template or purchasing an expensive permanent template, you know, it's an investment in time to make your own. The advantage of making your own is that there's not that upfront cost. You can make it to suit your requirements. If I knew I was doing a job for a particular project, I might create my template to eliminate work. Meaning, if I was going to do a flush pole prep on doors that were 7.0, and maybe I had some 8.0 doors on the job as well, I might make a long piece of wood, and I might flush that to the bottom of the door if my undercuts were consistent, clamp that template, and then with my router. So what I'm doing is eliminating the guesswork of having to measure up and over. So I'm eliminating that step. The downside of making your own template is maybe you're the only person who knows how this template works also. This and the installation instructions, you can say, here, see me if you have any questions. You know what I mean? You can hand it to an employee and say, do it. Let's make it happen. Making your own, who has the time? If you don't come out of a shop scenario and work with routers, work with whatever material it is that you would make a template out of, you're probably just going to be buying a template, and that's a good idea. The logic is, hey, it lasts forever. And this is a 4041 template. If that's not among the most common closers of all time, it certainly isn't the pantheon of common closers in the history of door closers. Okay, so be sure to use this to mark only. Don't drill through it, obviously. Now, to finish up this video, let's take a look at the link below this video to the manufacturer's page. That will allow you to review all the Just Door tools that we sell, the manufacturer's website, and the product catalog. And as you hit the product catalog, and if you do some door work, you'll want to be familiar with what these folks do. And I have had called them on occasion to get clarification of something. And I appreciate the fact that the person who answers the phone is the person who's answering that technical question. I appreciate that. Right on page 1, you'll see the door dolly. Door dollies, door carts, same logic, whether you make your own or buy one. There's really not an arguable position to not have one if you are having other people hang your doors. Here's what I mean. If I'm alone in the shop, I'm not using a door dolly. I'm picking it up and lifting it. When I was 25. 2.5 centuries down the road from there, that doesn't work the way it used to. The other logic is, if you're going to delegate this work to another person or people, it's really hard to say, pick up that 125-pound thing and make it happen. So having door dollies really is from a perspective of, can you really not have one? You can't really make the argument to someone to pick something up that's incredibly heavy. So the door dolly is worth its weight in gold, insurance, and gold. There's no reason for anyone to get hurt just trying to do their job, lifting very heavy objects. That original door stand, I've never bought that from them. I've made my own. I've bought other ones from people that have made them. Those are required. If you're machining a door, you're working on a door, you'll want something like that. As we scroll through the catalog, that door lifter, that 1-bar door lifter, that is a real smart idea, because when you've got the door, you've got the hinge leaves on the door and on the frame, and all you need is a little bit of help to get it up there. If you've ever done it, you've got one hand on the lock side, you got one hand on the hinge side, and the distance between the edge of the door and the frame is about 70% smaller than my fingers, it seems. Getting that door in position and just getting the help to get it lifted up is why that is worth its weight in gold. We sell those. We sell a door lifter every once in a while. There are other tools that are listed here. The permanent templates for closers, obviously, lock sets, exit devices. Those are there. They make sense. Other lock set installation kits. That VIX bit that they have listed there, if you've never used that, you'll want to purchase it today. If you pre-drill holes into hinges, it is irreplaceable as a tool. We have been selling that for decades. Shims. If you're shimming fire-rated doors, you'll certainly want to have steel shims because, well, it's required by code to use nothing but steel for a shim. And if you're going to shim doors with cardboard, be sure to use your competitor's business card and not yours. As we scroll through, there is a re-swagging tool that's here that they don't manufacture, but you can buy it through them. The hinge doctor. If you need to move a door over, you'll slide this. Saying that's a re-swagging tool, and I'm not a fan of re-swagging a hinge, but you put this heavy aluminum slide over the knuckle of the hinge and put onto it a large crescent wrench, and you just re-swag the hinge. You change the bend in the hinge leaves so as to affect a change in the gap between the edge of the door and the frame, on the lock side, on the hinge side. Not a fan of it because you don't want to break a weld, and it's certainly not best practice to physically bend stretch metal, especially when it's a fire-rated door. You're fatiguing the integrity of the weld. But people do it, and I have sold that kit to people, and they love it, and it works, and it's elegant in the way that it works. A door gap gauge is in their catalog, along with a door pressure gauge. If you do any fire door inspections, those are nice, or just door inspections, period. Those are nice to have. Other lock installation tools and kits are there. You can absolutely review that, see if there's anything that makes sense. If you do door work, you're going to want the door dolly, in my opinion. That's where it starts. Just getting the door to the location without damaging the door, the walls, the frames, your feet, your people. That's, like I said earlier, it's hard to argue against it. And just scrolling through the rest of it, it seems to be on and on with information of with parts that would be very helpful to a typical installer. Finally, if there are any questions on the 4041 4040 XP permanent PA mount closer or any other Just Door Tools product, please feel free to reach out to us, and we thank you very much.